Hey, guys. Welcome to Full Count, SportsMemo's MLB betting show. I am Jeff Michaels, or you may know me as JM Sports, and I'll be your host today. Guys, we got plenty of deals going on for you guys, but one of the best ones I've seen in a while. You guys jump on this opportunity. You guys get the entire month of September for $299. But not only that, you get the rest of this month free. Yeah, free. And you get MLB, NFL, and you have college football action going this month already. Plenty of opportunities to jump on. But as far as today goes, guys, we have an awesome cast here with us. Dr. Chuck and Eric Pauly are joining me today. Guys, it was a pleasure to spend the weekend with you. Dr. Chuck, always good to see you here with me. And Eric, it's been a while since we shared this stage together. How have you been, Eric? How was your flight home?
Flight home was unfortunately not the best on a red eye, delayed an hour and a half, but I had an absolute pleasure, obviously meeting everybody, but chopping it up with you, Jeff, and chopping it up with you, Dr. Chuck. It was a great time.
You know, I didn't mean to set you up for that flight one. As soon as those words came out of my mouth, I remembered that your flight wasn't very smooth. So great, we all made it home, and now you get to get back on a normal schedule, right? If you remember what that's like from all the way before Amsterdam.
Yeah, I was running all over the world. I was literally in Vegas on the 9-hour time difference. I didn't know if I should be going to bed, if I should eat dinner, if I should be sleeping, what was going on. But we're getting back, and now we are focused on finishing MLB strong, and for myself personally, the National Football League. So I'm excited.
Oh, as are we all. Dr. Chuck, how are you? I know we've seen each other a time or two since, but how you doing today?
Hey, as everybody has kind of said, the pressure's on today. Eric is stepping in the Ron spot, and so we're going to sweep, and it's going to be another 3-pack of sweeps. But yeah, there's some good stuff today, and there's baseball as always with Wednesday, Thursday, baseball happening right now. So
yeah. I was going to say, just another reason to tune into the MLB show for us today. Between the two of us so far, between me and Dr. Chuck, as well as a couple others, we are on a 6-0 run on this show on our best bets. Today, we're going for 3 more. But before we get to that segment, we're going to start with our 3 roundtable games for today. And game number 1, guys, White Sox are taking on Baltimore. Chicago's just 2-5 in their last 7 games, but they are coming off that win against Baltimore yesterday. 4 games back of Cleveland for the AL Central and 4 games out of the wild card. While Baltimore's got Jordan Lyles on the mound. They did put up 2 runs in the 9th inning last night, but it wasn't enough. They find themselves 2.5 games out of the wild card at the moment. They're the next team up. Both these pitchers are making their second start against these teams this season. Let's see what Eric has to say on this matchup. Eric, what do you got in mind for Chicago-Baltimore tonight?
Yeah, so looking at this matchup, I mean, Chicago is really like a -120 to -115 favorite. Baltimore around like +100 earlier today, around the +110. I'm honestly a little bit shocked that the White Sox are still being valued this high by the betting market, considering how much of a disappointment they've been this season. Between these two teams, the Orioles lead the season series 4-2. They have that lead over the White Sox in the wild card, like you mentioned, and both of these teams are just 5-5 in their last 10. Looking at Lance Lynn, I mean, he's only made 13 starts so far this season. He's 3-5 in those starts, but his stats are not painting the best picture. A 5.3 ERA, a 1.23 WHIP, and a 4.29 fielding independent of pitching. And in his last 3 starts, he allowed 7 runs on 17 hits and 17 innings of work, which isn't horrible. He's kind of getting back to form. But like you mentioned, when he did face the Orioles back in June, he allowed 6 runs on 6 hits and 6.2 innings of work. And on the road, he has a 6.39 ERA, a 5.06 FIP, and really most what stood out to me is a 500 slugging percentage against, meaning if the Orioles do get on base against him, they might be able to knock those runs in. On the other side, Lyles has been a little bit more consistent, 25 starts, 4.61 ERA, 4.29 FIP. And in their last match against the White Sox on 6/26, so the day after that Lynn pitched against the Orioles, he allowed 4 runs on 6 hits and 7 innings, and that's one of the games the White Sox stole from the Orioles. But Lyle's been much better at home this season. 63 innings. He's got a 3.13 ERA, a 3.3 FIP. a little bit high of a 147 whip, but the slugging percentage against is 390. I actually gave this out as not only a free play, but a small client play. I just do not think the White Sox have any business being a favorite, albeit a small favorite. Always a little bit of plus money on that money line. Give me the Orioles. I think I got it at plus 108 this morning.
I like it. Yeah. I looked. Lyles 5 straight winners at home. Baltimore's walked away with 5 straight winners at home, so it's definitely been a different game for him. Dr. Chuck, what do you got your eye on for tonight's matchup in this one?
I love talking Orioles on this show, and as any good Iceman bedtime story would go, if you're gonna be betting on an Orioles game, especially if they're at home, don't be against them. And so Eric Pauly set everything up perfectly here, and so I'm just going to talk ad nauseum SDQL numbers since the All-Star break. Orioles, he brought this up. How is this not public yet? I can't believe that. The White Sox should probably still be favored because I understand how the market works, and I understand, people have a misconception that the books are trying to predict the game. The books are just wanting, the books just want to reduce their liability. And that's the whole idea here. I can't believe, as a dog, since the All-Star break, the Orioles are 16-4 on the run line. They win a ton of those games, like Jeff said. But on the flip side of this, the Orioles, with Jordan Lyles on the mound since then, 5-1 straight up, 5-1 on the run line. And the White Sox, since the All-Star break, as road chalk, 2-11 on the run line, only having won 5 of those 13 games straight up. Lance Lynn in 6 of them, 2-4 against the run line and straight up. A lot of different ways to attack this. I like where Eric's going here. I have also put out a client play involving the Orioles. It's more of a parlay or laying a little bit more juice than you would normally lay on a run line, but it doesn't really matter. 16-4 speaks for itself. 80% is 25% above anything that's lucrative. And I just, I'm a Jordan Lyles backer. Lance Lynn is not the fountain of youth Lance Lynn from a year ago. Nothing about the White Sox is. I think it'd be a shame if this team does back into the playoffs. And so I'm with the Orioles. Money line sounds good to me. I wish you were getting a little more plus money, but yes, the market is catching up, and it'll probably catch up as we move to September as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, I looked at those Lyles number 2. You go back a little bit farther than that All-Star break. Baltimore's 7-2 in his last 9 starts. So 5-1, as you mentioned, and 2-1 leading into the break. So last 9 games, they're winning a good chunk of them in that one. So can't find any reason to argue on that one at all with you guys. So I think we're all in agreement there. But game 2, a little more of an uneven match, at least when it comes to the lines on this one. Toronto heads over to Boston for this AL East matchup. And Boston may be pretty much all but out of the playoffs. They're 16 games back of the Yankees, and they're 7 games out of the wild card. But Toronto's gaining ground and creating distance in that wild card spot. They're just a half game behind the Orioles. They hold that second wild card spot. And the last 7 games say it all. Toronto's 6-1. Boston's 1-5 in the last 6. So, Dr. Chuck, what you got your eye on? AL East matchup, and an exciting one for you.
Well, Jeff, you're always into AL Central. Plus, there's actual races going on there. It's a weird AL East because it's so deep, and the Yankees can't win, and then yet still they hold a pretty strong. I mean, what a beginning of the season they had, right? So I was a Blue Jays backer from jump. I was more on the Jesse Schul side in that steakhouse bet on who was going to win that division. I think things are evening out better. Kevin Gausman hasn't been able to get a lot of run support, but it's interesting because when he plays the Red Sox this season, it's different. And you'll remember the Blue Jays and Red Sox played right after the All-Star break, and that was that game where they put up 4 touchdowns with Kevin Gausman on the mound. And things have turned a little bit since then. They're 4-0 with him against the Red Sox. Cutter Crawford, despite having an amazing baseball name, doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me, nor do anything to do with the Red Sox. Can't figure out what the Red Sox are doing, and this just isn't their year. I don't think it's any reason to blow anything up. I think the Red Sox could just completely be status quo and come into next season and win the AL East. That's just the kind of team that they are with Cora and things like that, but this just isn't it. and there's not a motivation. There's not, there is pride to play for and not finishing dead last in a division that is shocking. No matter how much bullish you were on the Orioles, it's shocking where the Red Sox stand. But the Blue Jays are 12-3 straight up against them. The Red Sox, coming off of an extra inning game, not necessarily at home, just any park, are 3-8 straight up, 3-8 on the run line. Yeah. You normally have to lay more to get Kevin Gausman than this, and he's just looked great. It doesn't really matter what the Red Sox do. They've been scoring runs for him lately. I can't imagine them not being able to do that again because Crawford is someone that's very hittable. I would be on the Blue Jays on this. I like the Blue Jays at anything that you're getting better than that 1-2, which I think it's maybe minus 180. I can't remember what Jeff said. If it's minus 175, minus 180 right now. I would maybe, if you don't like laying that big of a line, and Jesse and I debate this all the time, you could parlay it with something. There's a lot of stuff to parlay it with. Parlay it with the Baltimore Orioles run line. That's a good plus money spot. But Blue Jays are winning this game. Doesn't really matter what they win by if you take them and keep that rolling. And there's just no way to back the Red Sox as this goes on.
I agree. I agree immensely. I do have a couple points that I was going to toss in there. But before I do, I don't want to steal anything from Eric Pauly. So we'll let Eric Pauly take it away, man. What do you got on this one tonight?
Yeah, so my best bet actually lies here, and I have a 3% playout for clients, so they're not going to be the same plays. But I just think I have a very solid read on this game, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of the things that Dr. Chuck was just mentioning. I mean, Gausman in his 23 starts with a 2.99 ERA, a 1.24 WHIP, and a 2.06 FIP. It's really not a stretch by any means to say he's one of the most underrated pitchers in the MLB this season, considering that his win-loss record is just 9-9. So you wouldn't expect him to have such great numbers and even like newspaper numbers, 2.99 ERA, 1.24 WHIP, but that 2.06 FIP is really among the league's best. I just think it's very interesting how this will be the fifth time he's facing Boston already this season. The Blue Jays are 4-0 in the games that Gausman has started against the Red Sox, and he did not allow a run in 2 of those 4 starts. In one of those starts, he only allowed a single run. But considering how good Gausman has been, his numbers on the road are actually far, far better. 1.65 ERA, that FIP drops to 1.71, and that WHIP goes down to a 0.99. So you got to love the body of work he's putting out there. I actually like Cutter Crawford a little bit. I mean, he's appeared in 19 games, but only has started toward the end of the season. He has a 5.14 ERA, a 4.35 FIP, but at home, that ERA goes down to a 4.08. The FIP goes up a little bit, but his WHIP also goes down to a 1.01. I'm going to save my best bet of the day for later because it's on this game, and I like keeping you guys in suspense. But I think Chuck makes a lot of good points where it's like the Red Sox, all they really have to play for is pride, barring a miracle run to the postseason. But the fact that they are 12-3 against Toronto this season obviously means the Jays have their number, but it also means that the Red Sox chances of playing spoiler for the Blue Jays, I don't like them that much. Again, I think you can maybe tell where I'm going with this one, but we'll keep you in suspense for a little bit, for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we'll give it a second there. Yeah, you just said it. You know, it's amazing how much Toronto has had Boston's number. In Boston, Toronto's 7-1 this season. They've just dominated. You know, not many situations, not many times you see a team dominate like that on the road against a single team. And Crawford's coming off an outing where he gave up 9 earned runs in less than 4 innings against Baltimore too. So, you know, that's maybe a bounce back opportunity, but Toronto's going for the sweep. So there's something to be said about the first 2 games there too. So I like it, guys. Now I can correct myself again, and we can head back to the AL Central for the last game of the night as Minnesota heads over to Houston. Chris Archer's on the mound for Minnesota. This is his 10th career start against Houston, and he put up some decent numbers. But Minnesota found themselves tied with the White Sox in that 4 games out of the AL Central, 4 games out of the wild card after losing 5 straight games. Houston puts Luis Garcia on the mound, and they continue to roll. They've won 5 out of their last 7, and they become the first team in the American League to hit that 80-game win marker with a commanding 12.5-game lead over Seattle. But we're talking more about tonight's game specifically. Eric Pauly, what are you looking at tonight on this one? What are we thinking about Houston and Minnesota?
Yeah, so the Twins, by any stretch, are not necessarily a bad team by any means. I mean, clearly being 4 games out of the AL Central, which, debatable how good that division truly is. They're 4-6 in their last 10. The Astros 6-4 in their last 10, hitting that 80 win mark. It's just, this is not the time or the place for the Twins to seriously get back into this race. They're playing against an Astros team that's been absolutely killing it at home. And Chris Archer, though his stats were not as bad as I honestly expected them to be before breaking down this game, I just do not have the confidence that he has. That I don't have any confidence in him, especially when he's pitching on the road. His road ERA is a 4.24. His batting average against is actually pretty low with a 2.11, but his FIP goes all the way up to a 5.58, which is really tough to back. In his last 3 starts, he has looked a little bit better, but he has not gone more than 5 innings in those starts, so do not expect him to go deep into this ball game. The Astros can certainly jump on him early and have to deal with that Minnesota bullpen. But Luis Garcia for Houston, he's clearly one of the down pitchers in that rotation. He pitched against the Twins on the road actually back in May, and he allowed no runs on 5 hits and 5 innings in the win. But his stats are he's worse at home. His splits, a 4.88 ERA, a 4.41 slugging percentage against, and a 4.26 FIP, which again is not terrible, but all things considered, given the position the Astros are in and given the position the Twins are in, the Astros not only being the hotter team, but they're clearly and certainly the better team. I expect the Astros to beat up on Archer today, and I would actually back them on the run line today for plus money.
I like it. Plus money. Hey, that's perfect opportunity. Eric, let me ask you, since you mentioned it too, the starts against Houston, I always think about it too. We always think about how a pitcher's done, against a team specifically in recent outings. Does it alter the opinion when you look at most of those starts from Archer against Houston? He's posted a 2.67 ERA against Houston, but he made the one start this year that you mentioned. His previous start before that was 2017, back when he was playing on a different team. So, does that factor in? Does that change the effect of his numbers against the team when there is such a big gap?
Yeah, so there's certainly, whenever looking at pitching matchups, especially when a pitcher moves into a different division and he used to play a good amount of years in one division, so that team is certainly, the other teams in that division know that pitcher well. It certainly plays a factor. Dating back to 2017, however, that's not something that's going to come up in my analysis. That was 5 years ago. Archer, that's back when Archer was actually being touted as a potential ace in the making. So given his career arc, it's not something I would put too much stock in. However, it is truly important to take a look at pitchers who moved on to new teams when they're facing a team in their old division, because yes, those rosters aren't always going to be exactly the same, but that pitcher knows that they faced that team a number of times last year. Like, for example, if Gausman went to a different team, and faced the Red Sox next year, he faced the Red Sox 5 times already this season. There's definitely some stock to be put in because of what he did last year. So that gap of years in this situation does not affect it, but you certainly need to take into consideration how that pitcher has fared against that team, because then you have to come down to, again, your analysis, because that's the end of the day. You're, putting your money where you think that there is value. And if you think Archer had a great start against Houston, but it was more of a fluke and you expect him to regress, makes it more of an Astro spot. If you think that start where he got rocked was something of an anomaly and you expect him to progress, then you can maybe find better value in the team of that pitcher that you think that had that bad in the first time. So in this case, I'm not putting too much stock in Archer's past performances. Again, even going back to these starts that happened in May, it's August now. Of course, a ton of things have changed with these teams. The Twins right now are just not playing their best baseball, and you need to bring that every time you play the Astros. And I expect them to, again, cover that run line tonight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's usually my thought process. It gives you a little bit of the atmosphere in the stadium too. But outside of that, I agree completely. Dr. Chuck, what are you thinking tonight on this Houston-Minnesota game? You got your eye on anything in particular? Oh, I believe you are muted, Dr. Chuck.
You're muted. So good. What I was saying is that's so good. Just sitting back and listening to the two of you talk. There's nothing I have to add here. I'm on the run line. I was on the run line last night. As much as I completely agree with most everything that Jesse Schul says. The only thing I disagreed with in his bedtime story was the home team run line. I don't, and I say it all the time in my analysis, I don't, it's like that Dos Equis commercial. I don't often take a home team on the run line, but when I do, there's an enormous amount of plus EV action on it. But in that same bedtime story, he said, always check the injury reports. And this is not the same team. No matter what we think of the AL Central and whether or not they're a paper tiger in the playoffs or period, or who, doesn't matter who makes it because they're not going far. And everybody kind of thinks it's the Yankees or Astros pennant to be had. This is not the same team, no matter how poorly they've played without Byron Buxton. And he's out again. He's on the IL. We played against them last night. They put up 1 run. Run line is the only way you're going to be able to get this. And Luis Garcia should be fine. Chris Archer, you guys both brought it up. He's not all that hateable. He's not anything to celebrate either, but he doesn't pitch long. You know, if the Astros can take some pitches and get some walks, the guy's not even going to make it through the 4th inning. And the Twins, the last 7 to 10 days, their FIP from the bullpen and relievers is 4+. That's not something the Twins want. They need more innings from their starter, except that Archer keeps getting the ball every 5th day. And that's just something that Baldelli has to know is going to be bullpen heavy, no matter what the Astros do. And just as the final point, yes, I'm on the run line. Yes, it's a home team, but it's plus money. And just to Eric Pauly's point, he nailed it exactly. I couldn't possibly care less about something to do with 2017. And I normally talk about SDQL stuff, only team agnostic. And so when I talked about a lot of the White Sox and who was our first game? The White Sox game, I talked specifically about Orioles and team trends. Normally I like team agnostic stuff. And that's why I like his angle on leaving a team and a team that you might know better from last season. But yeah, I mean, facing the Astros in 2017, there's no Yordan Alvarez, there's no rings, there's no anything. And so I wouldn't put any stock into something like that. And I think it's a misnomer to say it's important to look back at all 12 years of Chris Archer's stats and take any of that into account. And I think that's just a poor way to go about analyzing a game like that.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And the reason I brought it up was actually because, to give people a second look at things, because I looked at it at first glance. I saw the team was 6-3 with a 2.9 or a 2.3 something ERA and an unbelievable whip to go and 0.855 whip in his career against Houston. Is something that you think jumps out to you, and then you look back and it doesn't mean quite as much as you thought it did. So, just another, yeah.
Like to your point, like every week on Twitter, you'll see someone post something, and this will be close to Jeff's heart, like the Browns are 16-5 against the spread when blah, 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 blah. This happens going back to 1995. Well, great. How many quarterbacks and coaches have you had since then, Jeff? It's just not, it's silly to do those kind of things that are like team-based trends and it just doesn't get you anywhere. And I think it's a bad idea for people that want to be successful in this industry to go off of things like that.
And also just another point to that. I mean, while we started this conversation, I completely agree with that. You can't take too much stock in it. The one thing that I would at least somewhat consider is how a pitcher pitches in an opposing ballpark. Because if that is relatively consistent, say if Chris Archer went to Houston at least one time over the past 5 years and put up pretty similar numbers, you could then probably say with a little bit of certainty that maybe Chris Archer enjoys something about pitching in Houston, and there is something about that puts a fire in his belly. Maybe he was born in Houston and he's pitching in front of family and things like that. Those are angles that certainly you can use to find plus EV. But again, just saying, if he was switching between playing against the Astros in Pittsburgh and then at his next stop, and then that one game he had a good game in Houston, that's definitely not enough to draw any sort of conclusion that would turn a bet into a plus EV bet, like Chuck loves to say, because that's what we do. We find plus EV bets.
Genius.
Yeah, absolutely. And when the Minnesota injury report is a novel in itself. So I couldn't agree more, guys. And, we'll head over. We'll stop the wait that everybody's been waiting for since, Eric started the suspense that we all come to this show to start. But the best bet segment, we are going to, I'll take the reins to start this one off. We'll switch it up here a little bit and go with my best bet for today. But I do have over on the premium side, guys, my top play today is actually an MLB totals play, but it is a 5% totals play. It's my totals game of the month. So it is a big one over there for you on the premium site. And I do have some football action up for this weekend, another big play going in preseason, but you'll hear more about that tomorrow, I'm sure, on our new Family Affairs show. But as far as today's best bet goes, guys, I am actually looking Jacob deGrom under 9.5 strikeouts tonight. This is just his 5th start, and he has been impressive in his opening starts. I won't deny that. While there's no intention here of saying that Colorado is going to even come close in this game, seeing as they're the second largest dogs of the season, Jacob deGrom's 5 starts, in his 4 starts, he's got a pretty high strikeout total tonight against a team that really doesn't strike out. He does have 2 double-digit strikeout games out of his first 4, but they come against this 4 starts have come against 3 teams, seeing as he played Atlanta twice, that strikes out noticeably more than Colorado. I mean, Colorado is the second best team when it comes to strikeouts on the road. Struck out 476 times, but that's the second best number in the MLB. And they're averaging just 7.76 strikeouts per game. The 7th best. And in the last 20 games, they're striking out just over 7 times too. And they've played Zach Gallen, who's 25th in strikeouts. Merrill Kelly on the same team is 38th. And Musgrove and Martin Perez are both in the top 30 as well. And the Rockies have only struck out 10 or more times 34 times this season. That's just 27% of their games. If I tell you they don't strike out that many times in 91 out of 125 games, seems like a pretty good chance, not to mention the fact that that is 10 plus times in the entire game. That's assuming that in his 5th start in the season, Jacob deGrom can go the entire game when he hasn't seen the 8th inning. 7th, he's gone 6 2/3, on average, I believe, in his 4 starts. But this just isn't a team that strikes out, as much as you would think for a team that is this bad. You think strikeouts is normally just, in comparison with how bad a team is, but they may be losing games, but their outs aren't coming from strikeouts. They're putting the bat on the ball, and unfortunately, they're putting the ball in the wrong place. But they are getting the bat on the ball. While I think deGrom walks away with the win in this game, I am going to put money on under that 9.5 strikeouts for my best bet tonight. So maybe a shocker, but I do like that one. And, guys, we're going to stop the suspense now. Eric, let's head over to you and see what you had to say more about that second game.
Yeah, like for starters, though, I need to give you kudos. I mean, that was sharp as hell. I love that betting angle for deGrom going under. I think that if for those watching at home, I mean, that was just honestly a clinic of analysis right there on why to go against a team, go against that strikeout total. Minus 130 juice might scare some people on props right away. But if you look at implied probability, seeing that the Colorado Rockies only strike out more than 10 times in a game, and that does not include only the starting pitcher, that only happens 20% of the time. A minus 130 for that implied probability that was really great, Jeff. And definitely make sure to tune into that Family Affairs show when it goes live. But if you couldn't tell already, obviously I'm not laying that big juice with the Blue Jays. I'm going to be taking them on the run line tonight against the Red Sox. It does scare me a little bit that Gausman is 4-0 against the Sox this year. But on the other hand, I don't really put too much stock in that as well because each start is going to be individual. I do have another 3% play on this game that is actually out for clients. You could take a look on that at sportsmemo.com. But my real basis on this is, like Dr. Chuck was saying earlier in the show, the Red Sox being 3-12 against the Blue Jays this year, they haven't even been the slightest bit competitive, nor have they shown that kind of one sense of urgency or two kind of that have that fire in their belly to really make a push for this thing. Gausman, again, has been one of the most underrated pitchers in the MLB, and you wouldn't be able to tell from his newspaper stats. But when you peel back the curtain a little bit, especially how he's pitched on the road, I don't think Boston is going to be producing a ton of runs whatsoever. I am going with the Blue Jays to cover the -1.5 on the road. I got that at around -110, so you can get standard juice on that. Blue Jays, -1.5.
I like it. Blue Jays are going for the sweep tonight and closing that gap on the Orioles. But you guys got a little break from that game that I talked about. But Dr. Chuck, let's take it over to you and see what you're looking at tonight for this best bet.
Well, you meant, and you did. I mean, Eric Pauly's right. I mean, you slaughtered it. I have nothing that I can say. It's priced, before we went on air, I was messing with you a little bit, and it's priced perfectly for your, and that's why it's juiced to go under, because it's just priced perfectly. And a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about are reasons that your bet would win. I'm taking the Mets on the first 5. I could just talk. I would have talked for we're on 30 minutes. I could have talked for 30 minutes about Jacob deGrom right now. I'm not even a Met. I'm not a Mets fan. I don't care about the Mets. I don't care about deGrom or Scherzer. What the guy's doing is insane. I posted, Chris puts out the tweet, and I retweeted it, and I just said he's an historic favorite today. He is. This is only the second 400, 1-4 favorite of the season. Not even the Dodgers. Not once. It was somebody. I think it was somebody playing the Zerpa for the Royals. Only 24 times in database history has this even happened. But the team's only won 18 times. But there's also, Jacob deGrom is back. 37 strikeouts, 1 walk. His K to walk ratio is 44.4. His FIP is 0.64. If you expand these things out, he doesn't qualify for any of the StatCast numbers. He can't win the awards. He's obviously not going to win another Cy Young. This isn't the case. But man, if someone that's only going to make 8 or 9 starts on the season could do it, these are the numbers that you put up. It's insane. His fastball is nuts. The Rockies just played yesterday at home. When you leave Coors, it's awful. There's a reason that DraftKings and FanDuel have the Rockies team total 1.5. Yes, the under is juiced at +120. I'm still taking it. Maybe they won't strike out a bunch, and maybe deGrom won't strike out 10 guys. And it's not like that's what he's been averaging. He's averaging 9. It's priced perfectly. I think Jeff's probably going to win this in like a 7 or 8 type range. But there's also a reason that you have to lay 2 runs in the first 5 to get him. This fastball that he throws is almost perfect anyway. With a -21 VMI they're going to have at Citi Field tonight, where runs go to die sometimes as well. They're not going to be able to do anything against that. If Showalter takes him out after 5, I wouldn't be surprised, because they have a solid VMI. They're at home. This isn't going to be close. It shouldn't be close by any of my numbers. And there's only one team for $100 bettors, there's only one team that has made 4 figures worth of money in the first 5 at home, and it's the Mets. They're at almost $1,900 made on for $100 bettors. The next closest is $900 for the Cardinals. I mean, they're a first 5 monster class. They almost have 40 straight up first 5 wins at home. Just think about that. And it's just not even going to be all that close. What deGrom's doing is insanity. Yes, I'm obsessed with K to walk ratio, and yes, I'm obsessed with FIP, and he just slaughters it. And I think this is going to be 5-0 after 5, and I don't know if the Rockies score tonight.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I would like to emphasize the fact that you just had 40 straight up wins at home, not on the season. How many home games, do they play? They're 40-19 at home this year. They've only played 59 games. And I thought my percentage was good on that strikeout percentage, but I think you might have me beat on a 40 out of that. But I love it, guys. I do. And, we took a little longer than maybe we normally do. But, hey, from what I heard here, you got some winners coming out of tonight's show. Guys, as always, pleasure spending the panel with you guys as well, spending a half hour this afternoon with you guys. And best of luck to everybody out there watching us. Let's go cash in some winners all together tonight. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.